Hello and welcome to Queendom TV. So now we know more about the history of K-pop and the history of J-pop. Like I said, I gave very, very brief histories, just kind of more in the last kind of 50 to 100 years, really and truly, with Japanese pop even less, just to give us an idea of where that came from, because obviously these things have become more popular in the Western countries in the last kind of like 5 to 10 years or so. So today we're going to be talking about the rise in K-pop and then also the rise in J-pop and discussing the differences between both, because I think there's a lot of things to be said for both of them. So in the 90s, as I mentioned previously, the Koreans had already taken on pop culture of rap, etc., etc. But what really kicked things off, what a lot of people would say, is that the introduction of the Gangnam Style song. When I realized this, guys, I was like, no way. So Gangnam Style was like basically a pioneer for K-pop in one way, shape or another. That's crazy, right? But, you know, I think there was a lot to be said for that. It was the fact of the dancing. Again, a lot of people got involved with dancing. And again, guys, as somebody who loves dance and who has been very heavily involved in dance, I think dance is so important in life, not just in a professional sense of like you being a professional dancer or you being good at dancing, but as a way to express yourself. I think that's what people liked about Gangnam Style, is that they felt like they had a way of expressing themselves, like in a real way. The moves are pretty simple. And the thing that I think probably stuck up for the Koreans is realizing that for those of us in the Western world, at least living in the Western world, people were liking the music even though the music was not in English. Now, this isn't a big important thing to discuss as we discuss the rise and especially the global rise of K-pop and J-pop. When people talk about global, a lot of the time they're really just talking about the Western world, which for me, again, like I said before, is an issue, that we have got to the point now in life where it's almost like everybody wants to be validated by the Western world. But again, the Western world in a lot of ways is the world that is spending the most money, and if anything, if you want to really get rich off of something, you probably want to target your audience to the people in the Western world, because they're probably going to buy a lot of stuff and have money to invest, especially because a lot of the Western countries are the ones who went around stealing people's stuff, colonizing places and causing havoc that people are still trying to repair to this very day. So anyways, 2012 Gangnam Style hits, went viral in the Western world, and then only a year later, guys, BTS hopped onto the scene, and this just went wild. I think the big thing about K-pop, there's two things I want to talk about, well, a few things I want to talk about specifically in the rise of K-pop, is first of all, addressing the fact that I think they absolutely coined the power of having stans or fans, because when you have people who are massive supporters of somebody, they will do anything that person tells them to do. That is a massive power, you know. That's why, you know, that's why businesses want to sponsor, you know, your favorite influencer, because they influence you. Because if they say, I'm using this product, it's amazing, you're way more likely to use that product than even if you saw it on an advert, because it's basically like a high-level version of word of mouth. We all know, I don't know if you guys know this, but you know, word of mouth is said to be the strongest and most effective form of marketing. So word of mouth, that would be me saying, oh, by the way, I went to so-and-so yesterday. Oh, yeah, it was a great restaurant. You have to go there. That's word of mouth. Perfect marketing is better than for that same person, maybe that restaurant popping up on their phone. They may look at it. They may go. They may not. Even stronger when it's coming from somebody that you idolize. And I think idolization is an important thing to address with this pop culture, because I also think that in the sense of becoming like die-hard fans, like die-hard stans, as we call them nowadays, I do think that from the experiences in the Asian cultures, you know, when you look at the Japanese culture, the Korean culture, even in what's going on in China, they're a lot more susceptible to a higher level of idolization, I feel, based on what they've been going through. Like if you look at what's going on with Xi Jinping, a lot of it is forced onto the actual, forced onto the people, but nevertheless it's a very effective strategy. So I think with that, you know, BTS, obviously they have their fan base called the Army. I think that again also that need for people wanting to be a part of something. I think K-pop has offered an opportunity for people who are not your average person, who don't maybe fit into the normal standards of things, of how the world works in a lot of different ways, have found, you know, maybe their own tribe, their own kind of group of people, their herd that they feel comfortable with within K-pop as well. So that's also interesting. And then also the fashion, the style and everything like that. So that's on the more idolization side of things. Now, obviously, the fact that they did try purposely to cater more to the Western ideals and things like that. So K-pop artists made a serious effort to include English lyrics, you know, even their groups, a lot of their groups are actually English words. I mean, if you think BTS is something that's easy to say, they had a group like EXO. There's so many different groups. You've got Big Bang, Wonder Girls, New Generation, Brown Eyed Girls. These are all English. These are all in English. So again, in terms of ease of audience, do I think that K-pop would have still been popular even if the names are all in Korean? I don't think so, because I definitely think that people always feel comfortable with something that they can do easily. So being able to say their names, you know, and again, it's kind of an entitlement people in the Western world have that I actually find really annoying, is that they kind of expect people to translate everything for them. And a lot of the time I think we shouldn't, but I actually respect the Korean people and I'm actually happy for them to be making money. And if that's how they chose to do it, then that's fine. And I mean, the K-pop artists have gone as far as even collaborating with artists over in the Western world, you know, such as, you know, like Halsey, for example, Selena Gomez. But on top of that, there have even at this stage been K-pop artists who have been signed in Western labels or like American labels and stuff like that. So that's another thing to consider. I remember that there was an interview that I watched maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I wish I could remember the guy's name or even where I saw it, but it was a gentleman, a black gentleman living in the United States, was basically explaining how he was writing songs for BTS and stuff like that. So again, very much this collaboration of the Korean culture, Korean pop culture with Western pop culture, I think has really helped in the rise of K-pop. But another thing that's important to mention is the fact that K-pop is very much and K-pop artists are very much manufactured as opposed to just people, you know, like in the Western world or in other areas of the world. If you have a skill or a talent, if you love to sing, you probably start singing. Maybe one day somebody tells you you're great at singing. You decide to put more effort into it. Maybe you go to a performing arts school. Maybe you start taking vocal lessons. You probably start writing your own music. Probably start looking for gigs. Probably start trying to get seen and heard and things like that. The difference with K-pop is once the Korean people realize, and especially the Korean government realized how powerful this could be in terms of monetary wise, but and otherwise, which the otherwise is also can be concerning. They've been making sure to actually manufacture these artists that we have today. So, for example, dance is such a big part of K-pop. Now, what a lot of people don't know, which I think a lot of people at this stage do also know, but still some people don't know, is the fact that, you know, K-pop artists are scouted from as young as 11 years old and go through 5 to 10 years worth of training in dance, singing, and everything to get the K-pop artists of today. Every area of their life, everything that they're doing is very much is controlled and is planned for in order to produce the best results. So people are literally looking at what do the Western people like, how can we improve those things, and that's kind of what people are doing. So that's a very, very interesting thing that I discovered, you know, that about Korea, and the fact that they fully invested. In fact, K-pop artists are a government funded project, and the government actually makes money in Korea off of K-pop artists. And now when I say that, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good or bad thing, because they are giving these people an opportunity. Obviously, there's a massive dark side to do with K-pop, and I'm going to talk about that, by the way, guys, in another complete different video, not as part of this series, the dark side of K-pop and, you know, what these kinds of people have to go through. But it's just worth noting. And also, it's also potentially worth noting that, yeah, what's that guy's name? Never mind. But it's also, never mind. Anyways, yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day. So, yes. So basically, yeah, K-pop groups are created to succeed in the way that they succeed. And so again, it's a pretty good business model. I talk a lot in my channel about how, you know, in life, a lot of the things that we try and think are just these lovely, warm things are actually just businesses. You know, the healthcare system, I've said, is just a business. A lot of life is just businesses, you know. And this kind of takes me again, between talking about the points that I've just mentioned about businesses, the Western world, and idol culture and stuff like that. Let's compare that with the rise, or maybe the slightly lesser rise, of J-pop. Now, I noted down some differences between K-pop and J-pop. One of the things that stuck out a lot for me was the fact that Japanese people were a lot less concerned and bothered about getting validation or collaboration from Western society. They were much more interested in clinging on to their own culture and being happy within themselves, which I respect actually them for quite a lot. Again, I'm not saying anything against Korea, because they had their own reasons, and I think if it's bringing money into the country for the people, then I'm happy for them to be able to be doing that also as well. I think also with Japanese music in general, from what I've seen from J-pop versus K-pop, Japanese music is a lot more appealing, probably more to an adult fan base, especially based on the fact that a lot of it, like I said before, is connected with like anime and stuff like that, whereas a lot of the K-pop, it's got simpler lyrics, you know, like a lot of good just pop songs, simple lyrics, good beats that people can dance to, which are a lot more maybe appealing towards teenagers. So yeah, that's another interesting thing to take into account. And I think because of that, and also because of with K-pop, there's a much higher focus on dancing as well, in the sense that you have to be K-pop artists are very much dancers. They are K-pop singers or rappers, and they are dancers, you know, whereas with J-pop you can kind of just get away more with just dancing along however you want. They do make dances, they also tend to have dances that are more easy for you to join in with, you know, and so that's something else to be to consider as well. But one thing I will say as well for both of them is that that in K-pop's Japan, although it may not be as caring of the Western society and whatnot, to change itself like K-pop, they are a big, you know, seller even of K-pop. And in these cultures, where the one big difference, and I think another big reason why K-pop has become so popular, and why even the Western people want to get interested in on it, is the fact that for K-pop fans and even J-pop fans, they tend to buy, you know, the CDs are more bought and things are bought. The merch is backtrack. The fans and or stans are more likely to spend a lot more money on merch, even just buying things like CDs and records and all of that just for the sake of it, than in Western society. So again, it kind of seems like the business model for the actual artist, obviously, like I said, there's a whole dark side of all of this, but the business model is that they kind of get more, they're probably making more actual money, whereas in the Western society, we do a lot of streaming. Again, with J-pop, one of the reasons why people have said, why it could be suggested, has not become as popular, is that it hasn't bothered to put itself on all of our platforms that we're all used to. The Japanese actually have very, very, very strict copyright laws, and that's why you won't just easily find a lot of their stuff on places like Spotify, iTunes, and things like that. Again, I respect them highly for it, because although it might be nice for us over here to have being able to stream our favorite artists, it's a shame how little they make from a lot of these things. And so in a way, I think Japan has actually really protected the people where they come from, their own people, you know, and also the work that those people are doing. Because I think the Western way of doing things a lot of the time is that you just become a product, you know, and that's what is even said about K-pop artists, is that K-pop artists are basically like the product. They're not really the person that gets to say what they want to do. You know, even the way their groups are put together, it's very much constructed together. So again, it just begs the question, you know, which one is better, you know, in terms of which is better for the individual artist, you know. It's arguable, probably somewhere between the middle. I don't think it's bad to want to get money from Western countries, but I also think that it's important to protect your own pop culture and to protect the artists most importantly, because I think one thing that really upsets me about the entertainment industry, especially in the music industry, is the fact that a lot of the people that we love, a lot of the people that we support are just not getting paid what they deserve to get paid for what they do. And that's just such a big shame for me. I wish that they were. And I think if we can learn how to be able to do that, monetize people a bit better, that would be awesome. I think also in Japan, from what I can see, people can kind of forge their own career a lot more on an individual, personal basis, as in, you know, not so much of a reliance on being part of any big label or company and things like that. Again, because a lot of these artists and stuff made music on their own that maybe they then became part of an anime and things like that. So again, they kind of have a bit more autonomy and maybe might have a more authentic actual experience with their music. Again, with the K-pop artists, I do think a lot of them seem to be enjoying what they're doing and enjoying their fans, but I do wonder for them how much of their life is what they want for it to be. So yeah, that's just my video talking about the rise of K-pop, why it's become so big and popular over here in the Western world. Because I think when you say the rise really is a lot more to do with the Western world, I would say, in terms of K-pop. And I think that kind of reflected back into Korea more so in the sense of like, well, it's doing so well around the world, we kind of have to jump on board with this. Obviously, they had a president in Korea who wasn't too happy about that, even criminalizing musicians and things like that. And then for the Japanese people, I think they're very happy with their internal success, knowing that they've got, you know, the second biggest music market in the world anyway, and they still get to capitalize off of things like K-pop anyway. So yeah, that's the rise of K-pop and J-pop, and also a few of the differences that I noticed between them. And that's just for to prepare like hopefully a good foundation for us. Another point that I didn't mention that I really wanted to mention is something that I think specifically is tailoring to the Western audience, is this whole thing, the difference between the fact that with the J-pop it's a lot more cute, you know, this kawaii thing that I mentioned. On the K-pop side, they've gone more for the cool and sexy. Now, if we talk about social media as well and take TikTok into account, for example, I was thinking that as much as people do love Japanese culture, and it is another thing that has also integrated itself quite well, probably in other areas more so, like definitely in cuisine, I think the average person has probably had more Japanese food or opportunities to have Japanese food than they have Korean. I think with this age of social media, and again the younger audience, this kind of cool and kind of sexy thing that they've got going on with a lot of the K-pop artists is also more catering to the younger audience. Unfortunately, it's sad to say that the sexy thing is what's catering to the young people, but it's just what it is. And you know, another thing on the rise in K-pop is something that I always say, which is that sex sells. Sex sells. For some reason, you know, sex just sells. It's something that I've always I've kind of said for a while, and I could just see, you know. And again, if you think about the types of videos and things that were going viral on the likes of TikTok, even the dances, the well-known dancers in the Western world, if you think about the types of dances they do, it's a very sexualized thing. You have very sexualized usually sexualized moves, either in provocative clothing or very cool clothing. And then you got the Japanese people, like I said, who are more in the cute style. So I think that was another thing that kind of pushed K-pop above in the Western world, because the people in the Western world love that, which again is a shame in a way. I like the cool element of it, and I do think that people should be comfortable, you know, in, you know, however, feeling sexy and things like that. Don't get me wrong. But it's just the fact that, you know, obviously it is a younger audience. And I think that's the other thing to even note about the difference between K-pop and J-pop, is that it's always easier to sell to a younger audience, because it's like what they did with the iPhone. Like with the iPhone, the target market, I think, of the iPhone was said to be like 13 to 15-year-olds or something. Which obviously, you know, that 13 to 15-year-olds don't have money to be buying themselves iPhones. But the point is, they will care enough and bug their parents enough that their parents will buy the iPhones. And their parents, without the children doing it, probably would never be that bothered to have the iPhone, because they feel like they've got everything that they need already. And kind of feel like it's a similar thing with this, where you target a younger audience, you're making more money and you're having more success. This is why even on YouTube, you have people who are targeting children. Everybody's targeting children, if you think about it, and young people, because they're the ones who spend hours online. They're the ones who are going to beg their parents at Christmas to buy them, you know, the BTS album and the EXO album and the merchandise. You know, that's who people want to cater to. Adults are a bit more like, yeah, I'll buy an album of somebody that I like, and I'll listen to it, but you know. So yeah, those are just all things to take into account in terms of the rise of K-pop and J-pop. I've kind of already touched on why one is more popular than the other. So maybe technically I've already done my my second part of my video. I guess I technically have done the second part of my video already. You know, and so that kind of is how we can see how K-pop over time has become more popular, if you like, than J-pop. But again, like I said, I don't think it's something that we should look at as directly as the question states, isn't it? Because the reason why I even said, like, wait till the end to see what there is to really be said about all of this, is because K-pop, the popularity that we're referring to is very much talking specifically to just the fact that they're popular in the Western world, isn't it? So yeah, that's basically all that I have to say. I feel like I kind of ended up just going straight into the next video, which is totally fine. I just wanted to get across, you know, why K-pop has become more successful, and that it doesn't necessarily mean K-pop is better or worse than J-pop, but it does give a lot of questions and a lot of things for us to consider and think about when dealing and looking at the popularity of K-pop in nowadays. And I'm actually interested to see where that goes. I guess the next point I'm gonna get onto outside of this is going to be separately. I'm going to talk about you know, the dark side of K-pop, because wherever there are these amazing people doing all this work with all these fans, let's not forget, guys, the Bible says that to whom much is given, much is required, you know, and it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of money is going into this. A lot of effort is going into this. And there are a lot of things I've been hearing of as well. And I've been seeing as I was doing my research that show, you know, the things that can kind of go on behind closed doors for these kinds of people. So yeah, I guess that's the end of my series, my mini series. Why is K-pop more successful than J-pop? I think it's important to think about and to talk about. You guys let me know down below what you guys think about this, how you felt about the series. Aria, I'm especially looking forward to hearing from you and your thoughts, what you think. I'm definitely going to be doing more, by the way, on K-pop and J-pop and things like that, because I think it's really interesting and it's important as well to highlight what's going on around the world, and also things that have broken into this world, you know, as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you so much for being a part of this series, this very mini series. I'm talking about K-pop versus J-pop. Let me know what else you guys want to see. Let me know you guys' thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're feeling the vibe and you want to join the tribe. And don't forget to hit the like button as well to let me know that you liked the video. Other than that, I will see you in one of my next videos. God bless you all and goodbye.